Good morning, everyone. We will start our session at 11 so that we can just give everyone grace to actually joining the webinar. So 11. Good morning, Setu. We'll start at 11 just to let everyone join the session. Yeah. For those of you who just joined, welcome. We're gonna start our session at 11, just to let everyone join the session. So we'll start at 11. Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our work readiness webinar. I'm Kuku Mukwena. I am an IBM administrator at Within Code, and I'm not traveling alone today. You'll meet my colleagues towards the end of the session, but it's an honor to have you all here for what promises to be an inspiring and an impactful session. But before we dive into the main event, I'd like to share some few important updates with you guys. So in the chat, a link has been sent to you, which is titled Mark as Complete. So, what we would like from you to do is please click on that link. And if you do have an account, it will take you to what you see on the screen. Please mark it as complete so that we can have a track record of who has joined us today. And also, you can actually get a certificate for attending this session. So, you can take that certificate and post it on your LinkedIn if you'd like. And for those of you who don't have an account as yet, feel free to create a profile. And if you stumble across any problems, we do have a team that will walk you through how to resolve those problems towards the end of our session, right? And then for our upcoming events, it's gonna be a very busy December. um, but this week, Thursday, we have a cybersecurity protect your digital world workshop, so which will be happening on the 28th of November at 10 a.m. So stay tuned for more information about this event in your email as well as on our platform. And then for December, we have Women in Tech with Madhumani Liso. I think we've had the speaker before, and she's very brilliant when it comes to speaking about women in tech. But it's not only open to women, so even the guys can join the session. New dates will be sent out soon. And then we have gamified learning for team collaboration. I think a few of the second years have already dotted around how that will look like. So for you to just collaborate and have fun, feel free to join those sessions. Then we have our live coding webinar, which will be dedicated for our first years. So please do come through if you want to learn about your for loops and everything that you might be struggling with right now in your journey at Within Code, right? And then now, moving over to the heart of today's webinar, I am really thrilled to introduce to you guys our speaker, who is Setu, the Chief Commercial Officer of Within Code. Setu has been an instrument in bridging the gap between the tech world and the incredible talent it nurtured at Within Code. Today, she will share her practical advice on preparing for the workplace, highlighting skills that are not only valuable but essential for you to succeed in this comprehensive and ever evolving industry. So please join me in welcoming Setu Komani. Over to you, Setu.
Thank you so much, Gugu. Good morning, everyone. I'm really excited to be here today to talk to you about some practical ways to better prepare yourself for the working world, to share a bit of my experience in navigating employment throughout my 10-year career, and hopefully provide some really valuable insights that you're able to implement practically as you all, begin to pursue your own careers. And so I'd like to start off the session by asking a question to you all, and please engage in the chat. I wanted to get your feedback in terms of what do you think is the most important, what's the most important part of preparing for the working place? There's a number of different areas. Is it your qualifications? Is it your training? Is it your networks? Is it your CV? What do you think is the most important thing? And there's no wrong answers here. I'm just wanting to gauge the audience and find out where your head is at in terms of your understanding of that, so that I can also incorporate some of those points within my talk. I definitely want this session to be engaging. I'm not a fan of just going on and on and on forever. I'm definitely going to be looking at the chat and hoping to get some feedback and some engagement from you all. I know there are also a few people on YouTube as well. So if the team can also share any comments that are coming through on YouTube in Zoom, that would be very helpful. Thanks, Nicola. And so if you're on Zoom right now, please enter in the chat. What do you think is the most important part of preparing for your career, your job, an application, an interview? What is the most important thing? So we have one comment that's come through. Communication is key, definitely. That's a key part of just, if you can communicate really well, you'll do well in life, in your career, because that filters through every aspect of what we do. So communication, we have professionalism. Yes, professionalism, ooh, that's a big word. I think it's also something that we'll deep dive into in my conversation. Professionalism is there, networks. Yeah, we'll also cover that in my talk as well. The value and the importance and the role that networks play. Teamwork, yes, definitely. In order to have a long-standing, thriving career, you need to be able to work within a team and work with others. In particular, be able to just work with different people. I can say it's about having a great attitude towards learning. Yes, that's actually quite a good one. It wasn't something I was planning to share on, but I think, yeah, I'll share a little bit about how my curiosity and my, desire to learn in the workplace helped me build up a career. Networks, passion, taking charge of your learning. Yeah, really, really good points. Cool. So thanks everyone for that engagement. I think you all have touched on some points that I'm already planning on speaking about in my talk today. So I just want to start up by talking about my own career. So I completed my bachelor's degree in 2012. And shortly after that, obviously, you're now in the workplace, now you're in the world and you have to look for a job. I'd spent about 6 months looking for work, just sending emails, sending my CV, not getting responses, and just understanding that there was that frustration that builds up because you expect after you get a degree that people are going to want you, or you get your qualification, people are going to want you, they're going to try and hire you. But that's not really how the world works. But I'd managed to get a job. It wasn't the job that I wanted, but it was the job that was available at the time. And I just figured I'd make the most of it. And so for the first kind of 7 years of my career, I worked in tourism, started off in an operational role. And I'd made the decision early on in my career that I'm going to be a sponge. I'm going to learn as much as I can, take with me some really, really valuable lessons about, improving communication, building up my professional profile, and especially building up my experience during that time. And what that really helped me do was, yes, I learned a lot for myself, but it also helped me stand out, right? And so very early on in my career, people noticed that I was showing up in spaces and making myself available, that I was also reliable. If somebody gave me a task, I would deliver on that task. If I didn't understand something, again, to the point of communication, I would go and get clarity and understanding. I think especially as a junior hire, that is your superpower, is being able to just learn and ask questions and allow your curiosity to help you grow and develop. So, sorry. I think a tip that I'd like to give you for those of you who are taking notes is use that to your advantage. Don't be the junior hire that is sitting there nervous or even afraid or scared to ask questions or say that I don't understand. People expect that from you. So that's your superpower. Use that, leverage that, let it build you up. Don't see the, and I think you get a lot of that at We Think Code. You work in teams, you have to give help and offer and receive help. And so you get a lot of practice around that. And so take that with you into the work world as well. I can definitely say for me, it was something that I feel like contributed a lot to building up my career early on. And thereafter, I was getting promoted in the organization like every 2 years, because of that curiosity and that desire to learn, that ability to work with teams. Sometimes my team manager would send me to another team. And so just my ability to take on the work at hand and not shy away from a challenge, and similarly not shy away from asking for help and asking questions. And so essentially that's helped me build up my career today. I've gone on to do other things in between then and now, obviously. But I guess that's a little bit about my career. In terms of the starting point of everything, your CV is an extension and a representation of you, right? And so you need to put into your CV, you need to recognize that your CV tells them who you are before they even meet you, right? So there's a big deal in terms of preparing a CV that is presentable, a CV that well represents your capabilities, um, a CV that stands out. Because remember, they're looking through and sifting through so many applications, and I've been on the other side of trying to recruit. You get some CVs that you just look at, not even read. You get some CVs that you just look at and you're like, this person isn't serious, because they didn't put in any effort into making their CV stand out, making their CV presentable. Then there's some CVs that, okay, this looks like somebody put in effort. This looks like a person who might put in effort into the role that we're hiring for. And then you start to read and you see little things like, oh, they're not paying attention to spelling and grammar. Now there's all these errors for no reason. And I start to make judgments about this person before I've even met them. This person doesn't care about the detail. This person, isn't the type of person to go the extra mile to make sure that they're delivering something, in this case, something that represents themselves, delivering a top quality CV. How do I know that they're going to deliver, in terms of employing them into the job that I want to hire them for? And so I guess my second tip here is your CV is important. It's important because it's the first step into the doorway. And yes, hiring managers, people who are employing, they are going to judge you based on the quality of your CV. Did you put in the effort to structure it in a logical way? Did you put in the effort to make sure there's no spelling errors? Did you put in the effort to actually highlight the value that you will add to the role? And so I think a mistake that many people make about CVs is that they put very generic stuff like, this could have been created by AI. This doesn't really let me get to know you. And it doesn't paint a picture in my mind of the kind of employee I would get from hiring you. And so I learned, I guess, later on in my journey that when you are putting together a CV, like I said, it's a representation of you. So you must highlight all of the things that make you unique and qualified and best positioned for the job. And in terms of doing that, it's identifying the things that you have done, achievable things that you have done. So maybe you participated in a hackathon. You didn't even need to win. You can go into the details about how you contributed it to the team, how your contributions led to whatever the outcome could have been, what your learnings have been. And so you need to personalize your CV because, again, if somebody's looking through hundreds of these things, they want to see a candidate that is presenting themselves as a top quality choice candidate. And so, yeah, I would say that's your first kind of image that you're putting out there. So really have a look at what kind of image you're putting out there for yourself. And then the last thing I would say about on the topic of CVs is make sure you align your CV to the role. Again, going back to the issue of very generic information you want to be able to pitch at the very specific points that they're looking for. You've read the job description. Now you've gone in and made a copy of your CV that aligns very closely to what they've identified are the needs of this job. And you've highlighted those specific skills. And I know it's a lot of extra work. And I know it's a lot of extra work, but it's worth the effort. It's worth putting in the extra effort to make sure that you're essentially being presented in the best light for that job, because that's what you're doing with your CV. And so, yeah, I think that's my feedback in terms of, the CV that's your entry point, man. Put in effort into that. I would go in as far as saying your CV and your LinkedIn profile, because you're essentially presenting a personal brand. What do you want to say about yourself? What do you want them to think about you? And so definitely put in a lot of thought into putting together that CV, putting together your LinkedIn. I know the placements team has already engaged you all around this, or will engage you depending on which cohort you're with. But yeah, I think your CV is a critical point of decision making. And so definitely invest in putting together a really strong CV for yourself. Just quickly checking the chat to see if there's any questions that have come through.
Just to help you out, I can read some of the questions. So Zani is asking, how do we tailor our CV on the candidates portal for the different roles posted on the site? And considering the fact that they only can just post one CV for all the jobs that they're gonna.
When you say candidate portal clarification, you're saying the placement system.
Yes, I think that's what they are referring to.
I believe placements has the students update their LinkedIn and pull that version of their resume and then upload it, right?
I think they might have changed the process this time around. I think they actually have to do their own CVs, yeah.
Can I get clarification on that? Zani? Are you able to unmute? Oh, you have to make your own and then upload to the system. So, okay. How do we tailor our CV on the? Oh, right, because you can only upload one CV. I think in this specific instance, you want to make sure that that you have a strong LinkedIn profile. If you are pulling your CV, which is convenient, if you are pulling your CV from your LinkedIn profile, it means consistency, because when whatever document they're reading, they can go back and kind of look at your profile on LinkedIn and see a similar thing. I think what you'll have to do is there's the one that you use, obviously, when you're on the We Think Code platform, but I do know that the placements team does encourage students to go out and pursue other opportunities. And so you don't have to use the same one if you are pursuing other opportunities that you're using for We Think Code. And so you can have your own private folder of, varying CVs that cater to different roles that you might be interested in on your own drive and everything. So I would say still have them, still use them when you're exploring other opportunities. There may be limitations around the placement system, but I would say make sure that whatever version of the CV you're putting on the placement system is also kind of represented on your LinkedIn profile, because your LinkedIn profile link does get sent to those partners and they will have a look at it to check out if there's consistency there. So on LinkedIn, I know somebody asked me if I can review their CV. Unfortunately, I can't review anybody's CVs. I just don't have that capacity. I used to do it for the content club team when I was still head of marketing, but I'm no longer doing that. But I know the placements team has given you guys really, really thorough feedback about how to update your LinkedIn profiles and build a strong LinkedIn presence. And that was all informed by, the workshops and stuff that I used to do. So please, please, please do use those resources. And yeah, so that's my answer to that first question. The LinkedIn one has been stopped because we cannot edit it in LinkedIn. You can edit it in LinkedIn technically because it is a PDF version of your LinkedIn profile, if I can say that. So if you are taking the time to fill in your roles, your responsibilities, your qualifications, and all of that on LinkedIn itself, what you pull from there should actually be the updated, edited version of that. So yeah, that's to the question around editing the LinkedIn profile. When will the first years have access to the portal? Oh, shame. You guys still have a long way to go. You've been here for like 3 months. Next year, you should have access to that once you actually start the placements, work readiness, training, and everything. Once you're in second year. How can students, but saying that, there's nothing stopping you from going and making sure you register your LinkedIn now, updating it, getting a feel for the system, and starting to work towards that. I'm sure there's going to be lots of interactions even before the official kind of placements work readiness happens, but you still have that opportunity. I mean, you can go on LinkedIn at any given point, update your profile with your status as being a student, and share your journey as a student on LinkedIn. How can students build a professional network, especially when they don't have prior work experience? That's a good question. So yeah, so we're fast tracking to that point. So networks are, they don't tell you this, but networks are really important in career building, career starting. They really are. Your advantage is that you're part of We Think Code, and you're part of the We Think Code network. So I don't want you to think of networks as, I only start building a network when I start working. You're building a network now. And the thing is, this has been happening for many generations across universities and all of that, where you have this opportunity now to engage your peers and build relationships with them that are authentic, build relationships with them that will potentially unlock opportunities for you later on. But I think the number one rule for networks is make sure you're building authentic networks. Don't use people. It's never going to turn out well. I would say in terms of networking, start now. You have the We Think Code network, not just the people all the students who are with you now. You have the network of the 2023 cohort that's now outgoing and will be in the work world very, very soon. So I hope you've been connecting with your mentors and getting a lot of, value from them, because you can learn a lot from people. I think in building networks, what's helped me is, again, my curiosity on wanting to learn. And it's also how I maintain authentic networks, is there are certain things you can learn from people if you genuinely open up yourself to wanting to learn from people. And so I guess that's my next tip is, if you want to build a strong network, do it authentically and genuinely want to learn from people. Don't just ask for things. You can build strong networks and relationships when you go to people for help in an area that kind of is their specialization. So you can build networks practically at We Think Code by attending workshops, for example, bringing team members together to do a hackathon. That's how you build networks, because you're also wanting to build strong relationships that aren't based on, oh, well, we never spoke. why are you speaking to me now? Because I've gotten placements first and you want to see if there's a job here. So build those networks now while you are students, because those are some of the strongest networks that you will have. I've seen many job opportunities come my way via WhatsApp from people that I went to school with or study with. And so, yeah, don't try not to think about networks as something that only happens like at a conference or whatever. Start networking now, start practicing networking and networking in an authentic way now. How can we best respond to the tell me about yourself? But that question isn't about your work experience, right? When they say, tell me about yourself, they're wanting to know what type of person that you actually are. And there is a way to convey that message without going too personal, and also without going kind of in the direction of, excuse me, what might seem like a very manufactured response. And so talk about your passions, right? That's one way to go about it, is to say, I'll use myself as an example, right? So I'm very passionate about doing impactful work that is sustainable. I studied my MBA and focused on, social impact. This field, while I was learning about it, really interested me because, I want to use the skills that I've learned, the experience that I have, and my qualifications to contribute towards, making a more sustainable South African economy. I read a lot about, I don't know, startups. I'm really interested in African startups. I want to see African businesses thriving that are being led by, Africans and delivering African solutions. That's what excites me or whatever. So you can talk about yourself without talking about your professional experience, because there will be questions around that specifically, and they would have read your CV. So my approach to this question would be, have an understanding of what you're passionate about. In the aspect of software development, what are you excited about? Maybe, one day, yeah, I think sit down and think about what your passions really are in this space and in this field, and just reflect, maybe even make some notes for yourself, because sometimes what happens is these questions will catch us off guard because we haven't actually sat down and prepared and reflected on the kind of responses that we want to give. And so, number one, definitely the tell me about yourself question isn't a trick question. It isn't meant to now trigger you to give a whole history of your work experience. It's really them trying to get to know your personality, because that's one of the key things that differentiates you from another candidate, right? And so if you bring a little bit more personality, a little bit more passion, if your values, you can also talk about your values here, not like personal values in the way of like your kind of religious values or spiritual values or whatever, but your values around how you carry yourself as a person, what you contribute to the workspace, and what you want to contribute to the world, or whatever the case is, right? So that question is about your personality. And I would suggest that you take the time to think about how you want to position yourself when that question is being asked, because that's one of the key differentiators. You're all going to leave with the same qualification. What sets you apart from the person kind of sitting next to you? What is special about you? How can we differentiate our CVs and make them stand out, given that so many of us at We Think Code are working on similar projects? do projects outside of the curriculum. Do projects outside of the curriculum. I definitely encourage you to not restrict yourself. And if you are going to do that, fine. But if you do want to stand out, attend hackathons. Lots of people work on different projects, like solo projects, like people are building things on the side personally. So, and that's also another thing that you can talk about in an interview. Tell me about yourself. Oh, right now I'm really excited about this project that I'm building on the side. The idea came from this and it's aimed at doing that. And, because that also shows your personality, like, okay, this person is not just your run-of-the-mill software developer. They're also quite passionate about this field. And they seem to go the extra mile because, they also do their own projects on the side. And so, yeah, my advice there is if you want to stand out, go the extra mile, do things outside of what is mandated of you in the curriculum. That's going to be key. A recruiter told me to think of it as getting into an elevator. Brief but impactful. I definitely agree with that. You don't want to harp on and on about, sorry. So with regards to the tell me about yourself, somebody gave some really valuable feedback about being brief and impactful. So that was a good value add. Thank you for that. So I think with regards to, I guess, going back to networking and all of that, start building your networks now. These are the people who are going to help you find a job because I'll actually give you an example. There were, I think, 20 odd or 25 odd students that went to MTN in their first line of recruitment this year. Those students went to MTN and told them about, you guys are missing out on so many great people, and all of that. And then MTN came back to us and they started recruiting more people, right? So don't just stand out for the sake of standing out or holding out on standing out for the interviewer at the end or the employer at the end. Stand out now. Work with people, collaborate with people, get to know people, help people, ask people for help, build genuine connections now, because these are the people. You're in the trenches together, guys. These are the people that are going to help you get work. And so start the networking now. Share information about hackathons, get to know people outside of your designated groups when you're doing group work and all of that. Start the networking now. It's not going to be something that magically happens when you get employed. Sorry, did I skip a question? Oh, how can we elevate a company's culture during the job search process to ensure sorry, that it's a good fit? Oh, that's a good question. So I would 100% recommend that when you are pursuing a job opportunity, you do research on that company, right? Again, what I've been saying this entire time is like, don't be generic. Don't show up and just answer the questions like a robot. Don't be generic. Be specific. Be personable. Because they want to hire a person. So be you. And so when you are evaluating a company's, you evaluate the company on a couple levels. The first one is like, understand the company. So in terms of evaluating the culture, I guess if you don't know anybody there, it's going to be difficult to get an accurate indication of what the company culture is, but there are ways. There's Hello Peter, there's, is it Hello Peter or what's that? Is it Glassdoor? Glassdoor is the site where you can actually go look up a company and see what their own people have been saying about them. Is it Glassdoor? Yes. If you go on to Glassdoor, you can actually get a better feel for what a company is by looking at what employees and past employees have said about this work organization. I would say start off though on their website, have an idea of like, what is the baseline? What do they say their ethos is, their values, their mission? Does it align with what I want for myself? And then you can do a bit of a deep dive into Glassdoor to have an understanding of, is this an environment where I would thrive? Again, I would also go back to reflect, right? There are different work environments. So like a corporate environment will be very different from a startup environment. And I think you need to have an understanding of what works for me. Where do I see myself? Where could I thrive? I've been able to work in both a large business with like thousands of people and now working at Rethink Code with like less than 30 people. And I've been able to be a chameleon in both sides, but some people can't do that. Some people thrive better in one kind of circumstance than the other. And so take the time to reflect for yourself and draw up for yourself what is the kind of ideal environment for yourself. You're not going to get a perfect work environment where, you know, everything is all good all the time, or that you're going to love every single person and not, you know what I mean? So understand for yourself what it is that you want, understand for yourself what your purpose and what your why is, because that will contribute to your ability, your stickability in that environment. Because yes, at a certain level, it's external. You need to have an understanding of like assessing what that environment could be like, but you need to assess that against what works for you and what you want for yourself. Yeah, that's actually a good point. Somebody mentioned that you can also use LinkedIn as a start and send connections to current employees and reach out to them. Yes, that's also an opportunity. That's also a thing that you can do to just get a sense of what an environment is like. But I think if you're going to go through the effort of applying for a job, it is your responsibility to not just get a job for the sake of getting a job. Also understand what it is that you want for yourself. You want for yourself in that particular time and moment. I was reading something on LinkedIn that said you're either learning or you're earning. So it has to be one of those two things, right? Like, are you getting this job because you're learning? Are you getting this job because like it pays a lot? So whatever to the culture, right? So decide for yourself what it is that you want. Decide for yourself what it is that you need in that specific season of your life. These are really great questions. May you please share interview preparation tips that help you throughout your career? Yes, yes, I may. So that was also one of the other points that I wanted to bring up is just interview preparation. Yeah, that's a really key one, because if you are lucky enough to have been invited to an interview, and I'm actually going to take the moment to, on behalf of placements, show up. The moment that you get that email, that you get that invite, that you get that notification, accept and show up. The placements team is going out of their way to make sure that they help you prep even before your interview. And so there's a lot of help that is being offered at Rethink Code. And I think, you know, sometimes people get complacent, but these opportunities in this economy, don't pass by the opportunity and the chance to practice, to get assistance, to get a resource, to get help. Definitely don't pass up the opportunity to accept a calendar invite to an interview. Please, people, please. We can take the horse to the water, but we can't make it drink. So I just want to say on that note, the placements team does have quite a comprehensive program to provide support. But yeah, a part of that being successful means that you have to show up as well. Okay, back to my techniques. Number one, preparing for an interview, you have to research. Research, understand the role, right? Don't just click apply or whatever and not have a full understanding of what the role is requiring. This will help you to get a really good sense of how good of a fit you are for that. Because once you do that, you can motivate for it in your CV, you can motivate for it in the interview itself. And you want to show them that like you have a really sound understanding of what the role requires, because that's like next level, right? There are people who are out here just at an interview being generic, giving generic answers, and not showing that their understanding of, I understand what the role is and understand what the role requires of me. And this is where I see a match between what the role needs and what I can provide for the role. Because that's like a next level interaction to just the Q&A of a standardized interview. So definitely do your research on the company, research on the role, so that you can bring all these insights with you when you are talking to them. Because I'd say one of the, and I've sat in interviews, I've conducted my own interviews, and it gets frustrating when you're asking questions to someone who clearly has no understanding, didn't even look up the organization at all, can't provide insight on why they even want to be there, why this organization, what they want to contribute. Yeah, I'd say don't be that person. So do your research on the role and on the organization so that you can engage in a proper discussion at the point of interview. And for those of you who may get nervous and all of that, I encourage you to just jot down notes for yourself. No one is gonna fault you for being nervous during an interview. It happens. And you can even just clear the air from the very beginning to say, I'm really excited for this opportunity, but I'm also really nervous. Now they know. And it's no longer a secret that you have to keep for yourself. And to say, I've prepared some notes. So if it looks like I'm reading something, it's just to help me stay focused. There's nothing wrong with that. No one's going to penalize you for, showing up prepared. So definitely, I'd say do your research. Again, reflect, understand for yourself what you bring to the role, understand for yourself what you bring to the business so that you can articulate that. Understand why you want this job at this organization. I'm sure you've applied to many, or you could apply to any. But I guess part of it is, again, showing that you've done the research, showing that you've prepared, showing that you've put in the effort. It goes a long way. And that makes the communication a lot more dynamic and personal. And then the third one is rehearse. So practice. Practice with a friend. I know the placements team, like I said, has a very structured process, and they offer mock interviews and all of that stuff. Take up those opportunities, guys. Take up those opportunities. 4.5% youth unemployment rate. We can't sit and say, I tried everything when you're not showing up, right? So I would say rehearse and practice with friends. Even pick a buddy and just practice every week. I remember when I was doing my MBA and we were preparing for interviews, because consulting interviews are very involved. I chose someone in the class to sit with me on a weekly basis, and we tested each other. We practiced with each other. We gave each other feedback on how to improve and all of that, what we did better than last week. And so definitely you can create these structures for yourself to prepare yourself to really win when it comes to the interview period. Oh, definitely. Thank you, Elton. You must have at least one question for the interviewer. Don't be that person who says, oh, I don't have any questions when they ask you, because they're asking you because they want you to ask them something. And so I think organically, when you have researched, when you have reflected, you should be able to have at least one question for them going into that interview. And for me, typically my default question will be like, what would success look like for me in this role in the first 3 months? That's a great question because it shows that you're interested in understanding their expectations. But in understanding those expectations, you can also get some tips on how to win very early on in the like in the start of your working there. So asking them, what does it look like? What does success look like for me? You know, if I were to get this role, what does success look like for me in the first 3 months? What are the things that you would want to achieve in that window? And so it gives you a clear understanding of like, yeah, what those expectations are. Yeah, that's usually my default. There's a number of different questions that you can ask. But typically that's the one that I go to. How should we approach answering a question when we don't know the answer? So I think don't be afraid to pause and think. Like give yourself time to think. Don't feel like they ask the question and I must have an answer immediately. So they might ask you a question. You're allowed to say, huh, that's a really good question. Do you mind giving me a minute to process that and organize my thoughts? Again, no one is going to fault you for wanting to take the time to really consider the question and provide a thoughtful answer. And so take up that opportunity to actually step back and allow yourself to realistically think about that. And you can do it in real time. I mean, obviously don't take like forever. Think about it. Give yourself time. Let the silence be there for a while and then give your answer. How do I not sound rehearsed in an interview? Yeah, don't read. So I think a caveat for what I said earlier about having notes, it should be like bullet points that trigger your organic thought process. So it shouldn't be you're literally reading like line by line everything that you should say. Don't go into an interview doing that because it takes away from what they're trying to achieve, which is to assess you as a good fit personally. And that takes away from your personality if you're reading. And so if you are going to make notes, make sure that there are bullet points that organically lead your thought process in the direction that it needs to go for you to just speak naturally. The other thing is to rehearse so that you don't need the notes in front of you, so that you have all the points that you want to make in your head. And maybe it takes a few practices to actually drive those points into your consciousness so that you can recall them in the interview. And so I think it's one or the other. You either have bullet points with literally 1-2 words that trigger a thought process so you can speak more organically, or you rehearse the things that you want to say well ahead of time so that by the time you're there, you're able to recall what you've rehearsed without any notes so that you're not reading. And you have to just find that balance of like what works for you. Yeah, definitely do not read word for word some notes for your interview. I think that takes away from them getting to know your personality. Ooh, we have about 5 minutes left. So I just wanted to quickly check in with the team. Do we have any more questions coming through? Because I know you wanted to do like a demo and everything, and I took up all the time. Sorry.
No, it's okay. We were planning for just 5 minutes, so it's okay. Let me just check YouTube as well.
Cool. I think let's see if there's any
I
more.
didn't.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, I'm saying let's just see if there's anything more. Okay, on YouTube, there's nothing on this side.
Okay, there's no more questions in Zoom.
So that's
But I guess to summarize and close off on my side, um, remember when it comes to looking for a job, yes, be professional, but it's also your personal brand. Have an understanding of what your personal brand looks like um, professionally, and work towards that, right? So build out the CV, make sure it aligns with what you actually do and what your personality is actually like. Don't lie on your CV and hope you can get away with it at an interview or once you get the job. There's got to be alignment through and through, from the CV, from the interview to when you show up in the business and you're working in teams and you're networking and all of that. So make sure it's authentic, make sure it's very closely aligned to who you are. Also, just another pro tip, private all of your social media. Remember that when people Google you, the social media that you use the most is going to be the one that's at the top. And yeah, that's just my advice on that. I don't want to say too much. It's like, it's your personal brand. It is your professional brand. Manage it in the way that you want people to respond to it. If you want, there are a lot of good We Think coders on LinkedIn that are great examples of like people who have managed their professional brand like very, very well. I was speaking to an alumni during the grad in August, and she was telling me that ever since I did the workshop the previous year about LinkedIn, she's been using LinkedIn like crazy and like just been blowing up, right? Because she's been posting all the time about the things that she's doing and posting about interesting things, and talking to interesting people that she's really, that, she looks up to, inspired by, and all of that stuff. Again, going back to the authentic networking. But there are opportunities there. Uh, so remember that it is about you personally. In as much as We Think Code puts together all the structures to provide you with all the support that we can, show up, show up for yourself. You know, um, Oftentimes that process is and can be long and frustrating, but stay busy and committed. Read interesting articles, participate in, interesting hackathons, stay engaged with your peers, learn from others, reach out to alumni, get their advice, seek mentorship for people who are out in the industry. There's no limit to how you can actually just prepare and position yourself to win at the end of the program. Um, so yeah, that's pretty much it from my side. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, Setu. That was insightful and very inspiring. I'm hoping our students are working away with valuable lessons they can start applying today. And to all of you guys, I hope you've taken notes and are feeling more motivated to take the next steps towards building your careers. But before we even end our session, I just would like to have a few reminders for you guys. The link has been shared for you to just mark this as a complete, to actually say you have actually attended the session. You'll gain a certificate for that. You can show it off on your LinkedIn as you have learned how important it is to show people what you actually are doing and how you are upskilling yourself as well. And then also for upcoming events, please be on the lookout for those. We have valuable information to give you guys in terms of everything that we have planned for you throughout December as well, and now in November. And then also, we would like to hear from you guys, right, about our session and how you actually experienced it. So we have a survey that has been posted in the chats. We will be sending out an email to you guys as well. Please just let us know how you taking this. Any feedback is appreciated so we can also improve and give you something that will be very beneficial to you at the end of the day. So make sure you stay updated and connected to our Skills Build community, and look out for any updates also on our social media platform. And this recording will be uploaded on there as well, right? So on behalf of the Skills Build team, I'd like to thank each and one of you guys for being a part of today's workshop. A big thank you again to Setu for sharing her expertise. Let's continue to support each other and stay curious and strive for excellence in everything that we do. Have a wonderful day and see you on our next event, guys. Bye.